Hello, I'm Cole Powell, award-winning singer-songwriter from Random Mind Records. If you enjoy what you hear, be sure to like, subscribe, comment, and click the bell for notifications. Also, if you'd like the ability to help us choose what content to react to on the channel, as well as early access to reaction videos, consider supporting us on Patreon for $1 a month. The link's in the description. We also have $2 and $3 tiers that would give you access to exclusive content such as full-length album reactions, as well as full-length music-related television episode reactions. Alright, we got a little bit different video today. If you're a regular viewer of the channel, I'm not sure if you're following the Ed Sheeran, Marvin Gaye lawsuit case, copyright infringement case, but this case is incredibly interesting, and the ramifications of this could be astronomical for the music industry, and I don't think I'm being hyperbolic in saying that if Ed Sheeran loses this case, that it could be the legal death of music creativity in America. And I'm not a giant Ed Sheeran fan. I think he's a great artist. I respect his work. I'm just not a huge fan of his particular style, just personal opinion. But I do think he's in the right here. I thought about making my own video on it, but because I'm not doing YouTube full time, it was time prohibitive to do that. But I saw that Rick Beato, who, if you're not following Rick Beato on YouTube, you should. This guy is a music guru. He is excellent. He put out a video a couple of days ago. So I'm going to be reacting to his analysis of the situation and offering my perspective and commentary along. And now I'll shut up and we'll get to it.
So a lot of news organizations have been reaching out to me because the Ed Sheeran Marvin Gaye lawsuit trial has begun, and it's a copyright infringement case based on whether Ed Sheeran appropriated music from Marvin Gaye's Let's Get It On
good word
in
there.
his song Thinking Out Loud. Now, 4 years ago,
it's a great
when
summary.
it first came up, I made a video about
Succinct
it.
summary.
And I did a comparison of the verse of the songs, which are similar.
And I have not seen that video. Okay, here we go.
Baby, my
trying to hold back this feeling for so long.
You can change between the two very easily.
still full less heart at 23.
And if you feel like I feel, baby,
And I'm thinking about how
then come on. Oh, come on.
Okay, line up.
Okay,
Fairly
so
decent.
what I did between the two tracks is I took the Marvin Gaye track and I transposed it down a half step so they'd be in the same key. But other than that, as you can see, the grooves and the vibe of both songs are pretty identical. I also did an
He's absolutely right. I mean, you could see there that they are, because it's the same chord progression. Of course, they're not in the same keys, but it is the same chord progression, if all things being equal, which is why he changed the keys there. Here's the thing, though. First of all, a chord progression isn't legally copyrightable. A vibe, a style, isn't legally copyrightable, because if it were, once somebody copyrights that style or that vibe, then nobody else can do it without getting permission and getting licenses. Same thing with a chord progression. Same thing with a production sound. Same thing with a rhythm. You can't, those are uncopyrightable elements. So basically, my understanding of this lawsuit, the argument is, yeah, all those individual elements are uncopyrightable, but if you put them together, then you have a copyright infringement suit. I'm going to tell you a little story, a little personal anecdote here. 2010, I got a ukulele for Christmas. I started playing a standard chord progression that's in thousands and thousands of songs. It's a 1-6-4-5. I had never actually written a song myself using that chord progression. I'd done a lot of 1-5-6-4s, but never 1-6-4-5. So I started playing that chord progression on ukulele, and I started thinking about, let's see, what songs I know that have that chord progression, and the first one I thought of was Jamaica by Led Zeppelin. I was like, hey, this would be really cool to do a ukulele cover of Jamaica by Zeppelin. And then I was immediately like, no, you know what? I think I'd like to write my own ukulele-based song, make it a modern pop rock genre, kind of in the vein of Train's Hey Soul Sister, Jason Mraz's I'm Yours, which were two fairly recent big hits at the time. This was 2010, using that chord progression. And I did. The lyrics were co-written by my wife, Brittany D. We did it as a duet. It was on my second album. I've done a couple of different mixes, a couple of different versions of it since then. And we performed it live virtually at every show. And when we did, we would actually mash it up with a small piece of Jamaica in the middle of the song, do like 30 seconds, then go back into the original company. That's Performance 101. If you're an artist, performing artist, you take an original song, you mash it up with a well-known cover that has some kind of musical similarities, and the crowd goes wild. And if you are an artist and you're not doing that, I highly recommend you try it. We all do this. And that story that I just told you, from the composition to the release to the performing, that's the story of countless songs produced in the last 50, 60 years. There's only so many notes available. There's only so many chords available. There's even less number of chord progressions that are going to be commercially viable that people will actually sit there and listen to and it appeal to them. So if you start not being able to use those chord progressions, not being able to use a vibe, a feel, a style, a rhythm, then the music industry is dead. And that story that I just told you, I might not should have told that story, because if Ed Sheeran loses this case, this might be the quote-unquote smoking gun, which is a term that the plaintiff's lawyer used when describing the Ed Sheeran video of him playing his song and Marvin Gaye's song, a smoking gun video. Is this video, with this anecdote I just told, is this going to be a smoking gun in the future if Ed loses his case and Led Zeppelin comes and sues me because I used the same chord progression as Jamaica and mashed it up in concert and admit it to that? Is Train and Jason Mraz, are they going to sue me because I wrote a song in the same vein with the same pop rock ukulele vibe that their two songs have? I don't know. Now, it's a little bit different. What I just described is a little bit different from Ed Sheeran, because one song has the chord progression. The other two songs are where I was shooting for the vibe and the feel. Is a little bit different. Now, did Ed Sheeran start this song and say, "Hey, I want to use this chord progression and I want to kind of have it in the same vibe, the same feel as a Marvin Gaye song"? I don't know. I don't know what, and he may have spoken to this somewhere, but he does mash them up in concert, and I don't know if that's because he realized after he had written his song that it matches up perfectly with Marvin Gaye's. I don't know. But even still, it sets a dangerous slippery slope precedent. I know a lot of people say, well, slippery slope, that's a logical fallacy. Slippery slope's real, guys. Once it starts, particularly when you get into legal territory here, once there's a legal precedent set, it just snowballs from there, goes downhill from there. So let's see what else Rick has to say about this.
Analysis of the melody in this section.
Okay, this is going to be good.
Let's take a look at bar one of Thinking Out Loud. Look at the
similar
melody here. So it starts on F sharp as compared to Let's Get It On, which starts on F sharp. But the rhythm of the melody is completely different. You can see that, obviously. There are 16th notes here. It goes F sharp, E, D. This goes down to F natural here. This bar is different. The G to A is different. In the next measure here, measure 3, very different rhythm, different notes. Got this triplet figure here as opposed to
100%.
these 16th, 8th, 16th. This has this interval jump. It's nothing. The melodies are nothing alike. I mean, you could say here in bar 5, you have this 16th note on the and of 2, F sharp to A, and then you have F sharp to G to A here. I mean, but that's a stretch. There's no comparison between the two melodies. Okay, now, here's where the song differs. Marvin Gaye's song doesn't really have a chorus like the Ed Sheeran song. The Ed Sheeran song actually goes to a different set.
That's right. They are completely different structures here. And I'm sure Rick's fixing to get into this, but the Marvin Gaye song, the whole thing is that same chord progression over and over again. Ed Sheeran, it's not the case. So we got some differentiation here. So the argument is there's a couple of particular elements that are combined that give the same feel of the Marvin Gaye song. And just to be clear, Marvin Gaye's estate is not suing that I'm aware of. This is actually the co-writers of the song's estate, the co-writer of the song's estate that is suing Ed Sheeran. But yeah, they're overall the songs are completely different, even though they share similar elements that give certain parts of Ed's song the same vibe as Marvin Gaye's Let's Get It On.
Let me play it for you.
I'm thinking about
Chorus.
people fall in love in mysterious ways. Maybe just the touch of a hand.
And see, that section right there reminds me, particularly with Rick playing it on acoustic here, of Mr. Big's 90s hit To Be With You. I hear some similarities. I hear some melodic similarities. I hear some similarities in the chord progression. So, can Mr. Big sue Ed for this section? I don't know. I guess we'll find out after this case.
Me, I fall in love with you every single day. I just wanna tell you so honey now.
The Marvin Gaye song
back into
just
the
stays
Marvin
on
Gaye
that
progression.
same chord vamp and has the chorus over it. So it's a completely different chorus. So the question here is this stolen from the Marvin Gaye song? Do they have a claim here? This is a really tough area. If you define the song as the melody and lyrics, I would say that the melody and the lyrics are not similar in the verse part, because definitely in the chorus they're not similar.
And historically, that's what you're copywriting, music and lyrics, because you cannot copyright a chord progression because there are only so many chords that can be used, and there's only so many notes that can be used in a melody as well.
If you consider the song to be, let's say you have the verses and the chorus and each are weighted 50%, is Marvin Gaye entitled to 25% of the money of the song, right? Or splitting the verse, since the melodies are not the same, but the musical content is really borrowed from Marvin Gaye's. It is.
But what you're talking about here, in my opinion, it sounds like Rick's kind of making the argument here that there is something here that they have a case with. And maybe legally, yeah, after a few of the last big copyright cases that have come through the U.S., but to me, those were not ruled on correctly. But regardless, if the elements that he's talking about, a lot of this is the production. Like, if this were an acoustic version with no drums, it wouldn't sound so much like the Marvin Gaye version. So a lot of what gives this the same vibe is the production element. Well, the production wouldn't be part of the songwriting copyright. That would be part of the sound recording copyright, and I don't know if Ed owns his own. I'm thinking probably his label owns the master recording. So if you're arguing that the vibe is a ripoff, well, part of the vibe is created in production, in the performance, not in the songwriting. So it seems to me like that would be a totally different lawsuit, a totally different case. So, and I think they actually are also suing the label, so maybe that is in there. I don't know. Let's get back to Rick.
There's just no question about it. The tracks are almost, you really can't tell where one changes to the other one, except for the snare is louder in the Ed Sheeran one. That's the only claim they have, is actually to the musical backing track. And is that a valid claim? That's a valid claim.
But that is not composition. That is production. That goes with the sound recording. If they're trying to sue Ed Sheeran for copying in the songwriting process, I don't even see how this got to trial. Whenever I read that the judge had sent this to trial basically on that quote-unquote smoking gun video where Ed Sheeran mashed up this song with the cover, my first thought was, well, this judge clearly knows nothing about music, nothing about performance, or this would never have gone to trial.
If you're going to define it by that. Now, the Blurred Lines case wasn't even close.
Yeah.
Those songs were not even close.
That was ridiculous.
And they lost the case.
Ridiculous.
I'm not sure what's going to happen in this.
That was the Robin Thicke, and I think that actually was the Marvin Gaye estate. And again, I don't think the Marvin Gaye estate is the one suing Ed Sheeran. From my understanding, it's the estate of Marvin Gaye's co-writer on Let's Get It On.
Do they owe them some money because it was borrowed from it? Probably, yeah. They probably do. But, where do you draw the line? But so many things are derivative.
And I don't know, he's getting it, sounds like he's getting into it right there. My issue with this is Rick saying They probably owe it because based on past cases, based on the precedent already been set, or he's saying they probably owe it because they really did. He really did rip it off. For me, as a creative, as a creator, even if he said, you know, I'd like to write something with the vibe of Let's Get It On and use the same chord progression, I'm not even sure if that should be considered copyright infringement, because that people have been doing that for years with no issue. There's a video floating around out there. Some of you may have seen it. It was like 50 bro country songs, not really 50, but a bunch of bro country songs mashed up, one after another, after another, after another, after another, intercut, and you can't even tell it's a different song. And none of those people are suing each other. None of the record labels are suing each other because it's a style, it's a vibe. They all use the same chord progression. Even some of the melodies are the same, and nobody cares because that's that style. So if you're going to write that style and you're going to use a chord progression that's standard in that style, I don't see how you can be legally liable for intellectual property theft. I don't get it. I don't get it. Let's probably close this out here. I'm going to back that up.
Because it was borrowed from it? Probably, yeah. They probably do. But, you know, where do you draw the line? So many things are derivative now. Do you
100%.
Copyright the arrangement? If you're going to go by what's happened in the past with the other lawsuit that happened,
so this is where it's coming
this
from.
one is definitely going to come out in favor of Marvin Gaye's estate, I would say.
That's a
but
shame.
They're
if
not
it does.
entitled to all the money from the song. They're entitled to a small portion of it, in my opinion. I'm just one person. Like I said, a lot of people were reaching out to me for my opinion on this since I made that video 4 years ago. That's my opinion. So if they want to use any bit of this video, feel free to.
Really good. Yeah, so that it sounds like where he's coming from. It's more based on the past cases of why he thinks that they have a valid case, not necessarily the absolute morality of it. Because for me, human beings have been around for a long time, been creating art for a long time. In music, there are no new notes, there are no new chords. We only have a certain pool that we can draw from when we're writing song. And U.S. copyright laws were supposedly put into place to protect creators from theft, and it has done that to a degree, but what I've seen from my end, the system has kind of been worked to favor corporate conglomerates that end up with all these intellectual property rights. But I think we need copyright reform so the big conglomerates don't have as much control over the intellectual property as they do. But at the same time, when you get a case like this that is, to me, just absolutely ludicrous, and it stabs at the heart of the songwriting industry, of creativity, of composition. This should have been thrown out of court immediately, in my opinion. Again, I'm not a lawyer, and some of you may watch this and completely disagree with me and listen to the clip where you could hear them mash up, be like, no, see there, it's completely mashed up. Yeah, you can mash it up. You can mash up many songs with many songs, and people have been doing it all the time, and there's never been an issue with it because there shouldn't be an issue with it. That is how creativity works. That's how songwriting works. That anecdote I told at the beginning of the video, that is the anecdote of just about any songwriter, any artist worth their salt, almost without exception. So there's Rick's opinion. That's my opinion. And I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, like, subscribe. Just consider supporting us on Patreon, and we'll see you soon.